Episode 6 of The Acolyte is here. Pretty good episode. It was very story driven. So let's hop in, break it down, and then I'll give you my thoughts. So we pick right up with Osha waking up on an unknown planet, is what we are told. It looks a lot like Octo from The Last Jedi. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be drawing those comparisons because it gives off those vibes. It's like a remote island in the middle of the ocean. It is very green and lush, so it just looks like Octo. We cut from there over to Sol, who is on Kofar in his ship, where we last saw him in episode 5. He's trying to call in a distress signal to the Jedi Order, but it's on the outer rim, so the signal is not very good. It keeps cutting in and out, so he doesn't know if his message is actually getting through. It also appears that he does not know that it is May with him instead of Osha. But Basil, the little sniffer dog character that keeps hanging around in all these episodes, he knows something is up. We still see him sniffing around, and he knows that is not Osha. We jump back to the not Octo planet, and we see Kymir skinny dipping. So if you had skinny dipping on your bingo card in a Star Wars show, congratulations, because we had it here. But Kymir goes for a swim. Osha's kind of snooping on him. She gets his saber. He starts his process, though, of trying to lure her to the dark side in this scene. So if you can get past the oddness of the Sith skinny dipping, it's not bad. He is trying to get her to join his side. He's playing this game. Probably the same thing he did with May. He's just now trying with Osha. We skip back to Sol, who is talking to May, who we think believes to be Osha. And we learn that he plans to come clean to the High Council, that he has a lot to tell them, apparently. Now, we still don't know what happened on Brendock with him. There's something shady with Sol. This whole series has kind of been building up to that, and so he is going to come clean. But surprisingly here, I don't know that I expected this, but we do jump back to Coruscant. So we see Vernestra Rowe. She learns about what happened on Kofar because Sol's message kind of came through. So it didn't go all the way through, but the apprentice did kind of make out essentially what Sol said, and that there are no survivors on his team. Continuing this whole cover-up issue that she has essentially started, she is getting a team ready to go to Kofar to figure things out. This episode keeps jumping around locations, so we go back to that unknown island planet, and Kymir is still talking to Osha. He's still playing this long game to get her to join him, and we learn that he was actually a Jedi, in his words, a very long time ago. More jumping back to the ship with Sol and May, and Basil and Pip are having none of this issue of May being an Osha imposter. So they attack her, they try to take her out, but she does end up doing what she needs to do and going back to Sol. And she appears to be playing Sol pretty well all throughout this episode, really the end of the last one on into this one. But ultimately, whether he knew it the whole time or just learned in this episode, he knows it's May. So he hits her with the stun gun. We see their ship leaving the Kofar orbit, but as he is leaving, Vernestra and her Jedi show up. We make yet another jump back to the unknown island planet that is totally not Octo. And we have Kymir working on his helmet, but also explaining cortosis to Osha. So if you were like me and did not know anything about cortosis until last week, Kymir explains it. But this starts what I think really is kind of the unraveling of Osha. She's tempted to put on the mask when Kymir offers it to her, and we kind of start to see with the music and everything playing, something dark is going on with Osha. We jump yet again back to Kofar. So Vernestra and her Jedi are going to investigate what happens. The locals say that the swarm of those bugs probably got anybody that was in the forest, but she doesn't buy it. So They get on into the forest. You see Jackie's body laying there. They find Yord. They find all the NPC characters that Chimera took out in like 3 seconds last week. And she starts asking his apprentice what he thinks happened. And so they kind of talk through it for a second. And then they come to the conclusion that Soul may have done it, that he is essentially going to be pinned for this massacre that happens. Now, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be some cover up. We know it. But jumping straight to Soul, which again, he's the only Jedi who maybe could have done that. But that's essentially what they're saying they're going to do. So I would expect they investigate that further going forward. We only have 2 more scenes to cut back and forth between. So we go back to Soul. He has Osha locked up on a table. He lets her know that he has been thinking about having this conversation for 16 years, and she's going to listen to him talk. They're going to talk about what happened on Brindok, and then they're going to go find May's master and Osha. But the final scene, which is back on Totally Not Octo, we see Osha going up to Chimera's helmet, the Knights of Ren looking helmet. She looks at it for a little bit. She puts the helmet on. So, and we actually get to see what it looks like inside the helmet. And kind of like what Chimera said a little ways back in the episode, it's like the training helmets that the Padawans would wear in the temple when they were training. So you can hardly see out of that thing. It's just her and the Force. And I believe that to be kind of letting us know that Osha may be the Acolyte. So if I'm rating this episode, I think it was good. I think they really focused on story here, and I thought it kind of flowed, other than the just constantly jumping back and forth, which I don't hate it. It was just a lot of scenes between the 3 parties involved. I thought it really pushed the story forward. We start seeing that Osha is going to be the one tempted by the dark side. Ultimately, we see Soul has got some explaining to do. He's got to come clean, which we've known that for quite some time, assuming we're going to learn that probably in the next episode. And we see the Jedi essentially being morons. I mean, I don't know a better way to say it. Now, we know in the prequel trilogy, they had a Sith Lord right under their nose. So this story is kind of getting us rolling towards the fall of the Jedi. But man, are they kind of dumb. I mean, they're going to pin this on Soul, it appears, which I don't even hate that idea. It's just going to make the Jedi look bad. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to Soul. Going to be interesting to see what happens with May and Osha. So I wasn't sure how they would follow up last week's episode with all the action that we had. And I think they did an okay job. I think it was a pretty good episode. Probably not my favorite of this whole series. That's going to be episode 5, in my opinion. That was great to watch. But I would give this episode probably a 7.5 or an 8, somewhere in between the two of those. So let me know what you thought about this episode in the comments, and I'll catch you next time.